We've been talking together about conflict and different perspectives on conflict. And the assumption of this conversation is that at some point you're going to be a leader. And so if you are a leader and you're dealing with conflict, what are the different ways in which you might deal with conflict? Well, we're going to spend the rest of our time together talking about that. So let me give you some perspectives about how different kinds of conflict require different kinds of responses from people. So, for example, there is conflict that you observe, where it is not between you two, where you are not involved in it, but you can look over there and those two people are in conflict. What is your role there? Well, is your role a mommy role, where you're going to go and break up the fight, or you're going to knock their heads together, or that's probably not the role that you're searching for. What's the most important thing that you can recognize when you're dealing with conflict that you are not a part of, but that you observe? And the first thing to do is get authorized. You have to ask yourself, what am I authorized to do? We talked before about getting authorized when we were talking about adaptive change. And I'll use an analogy that I used then. You're standing in line at a grocery store, and next to you in line is a person who is a mom, and she's talking to a kid, and she's talking in such a way that you disagree. Maybe she's being mean to them. Maybe, it doesn't matter what it is, but you would think she should be different. Now, what are you authorized to do in that moment? Well, if you're a stranger or a bystander, you have very little leg to stand on. You try and interfere between a mom and a kid, and you're just a bystander, and nobody's safety's at stake. That's just inappropriate. But let's say instead of that person being, I'm a bystander, let's say instead that I'm standing there and I'm talking to my sibling. That this is my sister and she's talking to my niece or my nephew. Well, I might have something I'm allowed to say there because the relationship between me and my sibling gives me something that I'm authorized to say. Not that much, but something. Let's say instead that I'm not a bystander, but I'm a parent, and that the person that I'm standing next to is my daughter who is talking to my grandchild. Well, I'm now authorized to say other things because of the relationship that between me and my daughter. Well, let's say instead that I'm not a bystander, but I'm a spouse, and that the person I'm standing next to is my wife, and that the person that she is talking to is the kid that we have together. Well, now I have a completely different kind of standing to speak. So what you need to recognize is that your role and your relationship determine what you are authorized to do. So let's say that we're standing over here, and there's some kind of conflict going on over here, and that my role says I am their boss. Well, I have certain kinds of authority in dealing with my employees, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about structural responsibilities for a conflict. But let's say instead that they are my co-workers. Well, I have less authority there. Let's say instead that they are my friends. Well, both of them are my friends. I have some status to get involved in this. Now let's say that one of them is my friend and one of them is not. Well, now I have less status because it looks like I'm going to be taking my friend's side. What you need to recognize is before you get involved in any kind of conflict, you have to ask yourself, what am I authorized to do? How do the roles and relationships involved allow me some kind of authority and preclude me from having other kinds of authority? How do I get authorized before I intervene?